Guilt about one unproductive day creates another unproductive morning. By the end, you will identify one trigger, prepare one response, and test it for 7 days. A wasted day becomes expensive only when you carry its judgment into tomorrow. The goal is not to fix everything. It is to stop one repeat before tomorrow begins. Notice exactly when the problem appears. Name what happened without judgment. Choose one repair action and stop planning after that. Keep the action small enough to repeat on a tired day. This working session is for people who recognize this problem. Guilt about one unproductive day creates another unproductive morning. You do not need special tools or a perfect plan. Notice one pattern and test one smaller response. Keep one result in view. This short reset helps you end a bad day without letting it take tomorrow. Read it once, then use the final page immediately. We will examine how the problem repeats and finish with an action you can remember on a busy day. Keep a blank note nearby. You will not be asked to document your whole life. At a few points, pause and write one sentence. That sentence is not homework for later. It is the bridge between listening now and behaving differently tomorrow. Long advice often fails because it gives you too many decisions at once. This session takes the opposite approach. We will examine the mechanism, compare realistic situations, and reduce the lesson to a response that remains usable when attention is limited. Behavioral science often describes this gap as the difference between intention and action. An intention states what you value. A prepared response defines what happens when a trigger appears. The principle matters because good intentions alone do not specify timing, environment, or the first visible movement. Cognitive science also gives us the idea of attentional capture. Urgent feelings and visible cues can temporarily crowd out quieter goals. The answer is not to distrust every feeling. It is to place one useful cue or sentence close enough to the moment that your longer-term judgment can re-enter the decision. Our first useful lens is the fresh start effect. Ask one practical question. What condition makes the first useful movement more likely? The answer should change something visible in the room, schedule, or first instruction. Apply the fresh start effect. 2. Name what happened without judgment. Choose one repair action and stop planning after that. Identify the cue immediately before the action. Remove one unnecessary decision and define a minimum that can be completed without ideal energy. This turns the research angle into an operating rule rather than another concept to remember. Our second useful lens is self-compassion after setbacks. Test self-compassion after setbacks against a difficult but ordinary day. Compare the current sequence with a version that begins one decision earlier. Then keep the change that shortens setup without weakening the intended result. The comparison must produce a visible difference, not merely a better explanation. Our third useful lens is implementation intentions. Translate implementation intentions into a one-line instruction for people who recognize this problem. Guilt about one unproductive day creates another unproductive morning. State where the action begins, which object or cue makes it obvious, and what counts as complete for the first attempt. If the instruction still needs a special mood, reduce its scope once more. For example, consider a person who understands the advice perfectly at night, but meets the same trigger the next afternoon. Without a prepared response, the old sequence wins in seconds. With one written sentence and a stopping rule, the person does not become flawless. They simply create enough space to choose once. A second example looks different. Someone follows a complicated plan for 3 days, misses the fourth, and abandons everything. The failure is not a lack of seriousness. The plan had no recovery rule. A durable method decides in advance how to resume after interruption without punishment or extra work. Part 1. What is really happening? Begin by locating the pattern in a real day. We are separating the event from the story built around it, because an accurate description gives you more options than self-criticism does. Name the pattern before trying to solve the whole problem. Start by treating this as an observable sequence rather than a judgment about your character. Write what happened immediately before the moment, what you felt pulled to do, and what followed. That short sequence gives you a place to intervene. Vague frustration cannot guide a better response, but a visible trigger and consequence can. Close what is really happening by naming the earliest signal you can notice next time. Recognition is the only task at this stage. You do not need to solve the entire sequence in advance. Part 2. The small reset. This section moves from recognition to response. Keep the useful action narrow, visible, and independent of a perfect mood so it can survive the moment when you need it. Use one rule only. A smaller action is easier to repeat when energy is low. Consider this principle in plain language. Behavior is easier to change when the desired response is decided before pressure arrives. Do not wait for the difficult moment to invent a perfect answer. Prepare one sentence or physical action while calm, then use it as a default when attention narrows. At the end of the small reset, write the response in language you would actually use. Remove any instruction that sounds impressive but would disappear under pressure. Part 3. The 7-day test. Now treat the idea as a short experiment rather than a permanent identity change. A limited test makes room for honest evidence, adjustment, and recovery. Repeat the same small action for 7 days. Record what changed without adding a new system. This short reset helps you end a bad day without letting it take tomorrow. At home, this may appear in a small moment that seems harmless until it repeats. Notice the first 10 seconds, because that is usually where choice still exists. After the old response gathers speed, willpower becomes expensive. A useful plan moves the decision earlier and makes the acceptable action obvious. Finish the 7-day test with one measure for the coming week. Choose a visible behavior or recovery time, not a demand to feel perfectly different by a deadline. Before building the weekly test, separate a useful method from a promise of total control. This practice can improve preparation, starting, and recovery after interruption. It cannot remove every difficult circumstance or replace professional help when health, debt, safety, or severe distress is involved. A realistic boundary around the method protects its value. Next, choose the scale of the experiment. Use one recurring situation, not every version of the problem across your life. Narrow scope helps you notice cause and effect. If the setting changes each day, the result becomes hard to interpret. If the setting remains recognizable, even a small improvement can teach you what to keep. Decide how you will record evidence without turning the practice into constant self-surveillance. One line after the event is enough. Situation, response, result. Avoid scoring your worth or guessing what somebody else thought. The record exists to show whether your chosen behavior happened and whether recovery became clearer or faster. Finally, preserve room for revision. A plan that fails, honestly, has still produced information. Maybe the cue appeared too late, the action was too large, or the stopping rule was unclear. Change one variable after the review. Altering everything at once may feel decisive, but it removes your ability to learn which adjustment mattered. If you want this exercise in a shorter format, the related BookSell mini-book, How to Restart After a Wasted Day, a mini-book, turns it into a compact guide you can review in one sitting. Keep listening for the complete 7-day test, then use the link in the description when you are ready. Now let us turn the ideas into a 7-day test. 7 days is long enough to reveal a pattern and short enough to feel concrete. The goal is not a perfect streak. The goal is evidence about what helps, what creates friction, and what needs to become smaller. Day 1 is observation. Do not force a dramatic change. Notice when the problem appears, write the time and situation, and record the first impulse that follows. End the note after 1 minute so observation does not become another exhausting project. Day 2 is preparation. Put the smallest useful response where you will see it before the old habit begins. That might be one sentence on your phone, one object placed in view, or one limit decided while your mind is calm. Day 3 is the first deliberate repetition. Use the same small action. Name what happened without judgment. Choose one repair action and stop planning after that. Do not improve it yet. Repetition gives you better information than constant adjustment because it separates a weak method from an unfamiliar method. Day 4 is friction review. Ask what almost stopped you. Was the action unclear, hidden, too large, or dependent on another person or tool? Remove one obstacle and keep every other part of the test the same. Day 5 is the tired day test. Assume your energy is lower than usual and use the smallest acceptable version. A routine that works only on your best day is inspiration. A routine with a tired day version can become dependable. Day 6 is recovery. If you missed a day, resume without compensation. Do not double the task or punish yourself with a stricter rule. The ability to restart quickly matters more than protecting a perfect record. Day 7 is review. Read the 7 short notes and look for one change you can actually see. Keep the part that reduced friction. Remove the part that required too much effort and write the next version in one sentence. Several objections may appear during this process. The first is that the action seems too small to matter. Small does not mean meaningless. It means the action is designed to happen consistently enough to produce evidence instead of remaining an impressive intention. The second objection is that you should solve the entire problem while motivation is available. That urge feels efficient, but it often creates a system too heavy to maintain. Use motivation to simplify the next step, not to multiply future obligations. The third objection is that one missed day ruins the test. It does not. A missed day is information about context and friction. Record what happened. Reduce the next action if necessary, and continue without turning one interruption into an identity. The fourth objection is impatience. You may understand the idea before your behavior changes. Understanding is the map. Repetition is the travel. Give the action enough ordinary attempts before deciding whether it deserves to stay. Take a final quiet minute now. Name the situation you expect to face, the old response that usually follows, and the smaller response you are choosing instead. Make each part concrete enough that tomorrow you can recognize the moment without replaying this entire session. Here is the complete reset in one line. Notice the pattern, choose one boundary, and name what happened without judgment. Choose one repair action and stop planning after that. That is enough for the first version. You can make it more sophisticated only after the simple version has worked in real life. Find the first real moment when this mattered last week. Describe only what a camera could have seen. Then add the feeling or assumption that influenced your response. Separating observation from interpretation makes the next choice easier to evaluate. Put the automatic response in one column and the prepared response in another. Under each, list the likely result 1 hour later. Choose the option whose later consequence matches the person you want to be. Rehearse the skill first where the emotional cost is low. Decide where you can practice the same movement with less pressure. Then carry that familiar response into the harder context. Replace abstract wording with visible behavior. State who acts, what happens, and where the response ends. Concrete language keeps reflection from becoming another form of delay. Use one rule only. Name one cost to time, one to attention, and one to self-respect or trust. This is not an invitation to create shame. It makes the trade-off visible enough to support a deliberate choice. Recall one occasion when the problem was smaller or absent. Note what changed in the environment, timing, expectation, or preparation. An exception can reveal a practical condition worth recreating. Assume you will forget or react badly once. Decide the next healthy action, how soon it can happen, and what punishment you will refuse to add. Recovery keeps one mistake from becoming a new pattern. Give one ordinary example that would make sense to a skeptical friend. If the example requires a perfect person or an ideal day, simplify it until someone could test it tomorrow without buying a tool or rebuilding a schedule. Decide when reflection is complete and ordinary life resumes. A clear ending protects useful thought from turning into rumination, repeated checking, or endless preparation disguised as responsibility. Mark what happens 10 minutes before the critical moment, during it, and 10 minutes after. Select one place where a small response could change the direction without requiring control over anyone else. Find one cue that strengthens the old response and one cue that could support the new one. Move, mute, prepare, or write something today so tomorrow's better option is easier to notice. Write one sign that the method helped, one sign it needs adjustment, and one sign the situation requires support beyond a self-guided exercise. Clear criteria prevent premature abandonment and blind persistence. Write the trigger on one line, the chosen response on the second, and the stopping point on the third. Keep it brief enough to read once without opening a longer planning session. Use one rule only. Replace any all-or-nothing demand with a minimum acceptable version. The smaller version should preserve the principle while lowering the effort needed to begin or recover. Choose the time and place where the action is most likely to begin. Attach it to something already happening, such as closing breakfast, opening the laptop, or sitting at the desk. Context turns a vague intention into an appointment the environment can help you remember. Imagine having half your usual patience and attention. Remove optional setup until the action remains possible. Keep the full version as a bonus rather than the minimum. This protects continuity without pretending that every day offers the same energy. End this review by choosing what you will ignore. Record what changed without adding a new system. Name one metric, notification, or imagined outcome that does not help the next movement. Attention improves when the plan excludes noise as clearly as it includes useful work. Make a pre-commitment from this point. This short reset helps you end a bad day without letting it take tomorrow. Decide the first movement now. Place the cue where it will appear and specify when the plan may be reviewed. A calm decision should not be renegotiated by every temporary change in mood. Picture the end of a difficult day when postponement feels easiest. Choose one physical transition, such as closing an app, preparing a page, or placing an object in view that makes tomorrow's beginning more obvious. Separate preparation from performance. Put setup, timing, and the minimum action in the first group. Put perfect concentration and a flawless result in the second. Build tomorrow from the first group because it contains the parts you can arrange tonight. Notice the first sentence your mind produces when starting feels heavy. Replace it with an accurate instruction that names only the next movement. The goal is not positive thinking. It is language that leaves no room for a 10-minute negotiation. For a short reset on the thinking pattern behind this topic, read the BookSell mini-book, How to Restart After a Wasted Day, a mini-book. It gives you a compact exercise you can review without replaying the full session. Use the link in the description to read the mini-guide on BookSell.